Okay, let's unpack this. In the world of cybersecurity, it often feels like just a constant stream of bad news, doesn't it?
It really does. Breaches, vulnerabilities, new malware popping up all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But, sometimes there are some significant wins too, things to celebrate.
Absolutely.
So today, on Calm Coding, your weekly cybersecurity deep dive into the latest news and stories, we're going to look at both sides. We've got, well, a stack of fresh sources here. Some show impressive progress, but others reveal some, frankly, alarming new attack methods. Pretty ingenious stuff, actually.
Indeed. And our mission, really, for this deep dive is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the insights from all these different reports.
Right.
We'll look at major security milestones, break down some recent high-profile incidents, and then, yeah, dive into some really sophisticated kind of emerging threats, things that might make you rethink digital safety. What's fascinating, I think, is how these stories, which seem separate, actually connect. They paint a clearer picture of today's cybersecurity landscape, help you understand not just what happened, but, why it matters to your own digital life.
Okay, sounds good. So, where do we start? The good news first.
Let's start with the positive, yeah.
All right. Here's where it gets really interesting right off the bat. Our first source, it reveals a major cloud security milestone. Amazon Web Services, AWS, they've just hit 100% multi-factor authentication, MFA, coverage for their root users. Now, that sounds huge, especially for AWS's scale. Is it really as significant as it sounds? What's the story there?
Oh, it absolutely is a massive milestone. I mean, for an organization as huge as AWS getting to 100% MFA on root accounts, that's significant.
Okay.
This isn't just like a technical checkbox. It's a huge shift in their security posture. They actually committed to this voluntarily to CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, as part of the Secure by Design initiative. And the core thing here, the insight, is that MFA isn't just a nice to have, it's foundational security.
Right.
It gives you that phishing-resistant verification. So even if an attacker somehow gets a username and password,
Which happens all the time.
exactly, that second factor, the MFA, can stop them cold. Doing that for all root users, the accounts with the most power, well, that sets an incredibly high bar.
That 100% MFA for root users, yeah, that's a phenomenal achievement. But the sources also mentioned AWS made other big security announcements at their Reinforce conference. Was it just, small updates, or are these real game changers for cloud security?
Definitely more than just incremental updates. Beyond MFA, yeah, they announced several things that point towards a more integrated and intelligent way of doing cloud security.
Okay, like what?
Well, take their Identity and Access Management Hub. The Access Analyzer part now lets you check, centrally, who has access to your critical resources.
Oh, better visibility.
It's more than just visibility, though. What's powerful is it enables proactive governance. Security teams can now easily audit and enforce least privilege, Stop accounts from having too much access right from the start.
Okay, so moving from just seeing what's up to actively shaping it, that sounds like a strategy shift.
Precisely. And that kind of ties into the updates for AWS Security Hub, too. It's not just a dashboard listing alerts anymore.
Right.
Now give you notifications ranked by how important they are. And, crucially, it can combine things. Like it can take multi-stage threats found by GuardDuty Extended Threat Detection and mix them with other signals, like vulnerabilities.
Oh, interesting. So it connects the dots.
Exactly. What that means for security teams is less alert fatigue. Instead of just, drowning in alerts, they get actionable intelligence. They can see active attack chains hitting vulnerable spots. It helps you focus on what really matters fast.
That kind of correlation, yeah, that's a huge win for analysts. I could see that. And GuardDuty itself got an upgrade too, right?
It did, yeah. GuardDuty Extended Threat Detection now supports container-based apps running on Amazon EKS Elastic Kubernetes service, so it extends its reach into that whole complex container world.
Which is huge now.
Absolutely. And one more. AWS Shield, their DDoS protection service, it got a new network security director. It spots misconfigurations that could be exploited in DDoS attacks or, like, SQL injection.
Okay.
The bigger picture here, really, is how these advancements from a giant like AWS trickle down. when they build stronger foundational security.
It helps everyone who uses them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It means better security for the businesses building on AWS and, by extension, for you, the users of those businesses' services. Kind of like a rising tide lifting all boats security-wise.
Okay, that makes sense. It's good to see progress. But now we got to pivot, right, to the ongoing challenges.
It's the reality check.
Because while the big players boost defenses, the news keeps reminding us nobody's immune. We've got a few recent reports here. Significant cyber attacks, data leaks.
Yeah.
First up, the car-sharing company, Zoomcar.
Yeah, Zoomcar. They had a cyber attack, impacted about 8.4 million users.
Wow, 8.4 million. What kind of data?
The data compromised included names, phone numbers, car registration numbers, postal addresses, email addresses, pretty standard PII.
Okay, personal identifying information.
Right. Now, Zoomcar did say that financial info, passwords, other really sensitive identifiers were not compromised. So that's a small silver lining, maybe.
Maybe. But how do they even find out?
That's actually quite striking. They were told by the attackers. The threat actors reached out to certain employees on June 9th, 2025.
Whoa, so like direct extortion.
Sounds like it, yeah. Zoomcar, to their credit, seemed to react quickly. Activated incident response, put in more safeguards, increased monitoring, got a third-party expert involved.
Standard playbook stuff.
Pretty much. And they notified regulators, police. For you, the listener, the key takeaway here is, even if they didn't get your credit card, this personal info is gold for attackers.
Right, for phishing and stuff.
Exactly. Highly targeted phishing scams, identity theft attempts, social engineering. You really need to be extra vigilant if your data was in a breach like this.
Okay, good point. Now, moving from cars to planes. WestJet, one of Canada's biggest airlines. They've also been looking into a possible cyber attack. Sounds like a different kind of impact, maybe.
It does seem different, yeah. WestJet confirmed a cybersecurity incident. It affected their internal systems and their app, apparently locking some users out.
Okay, so disruption.
Yeah, operational disruption. They've been really tight-lipped, though. Haven't said who did it, when, how, what the goal was. Nobody's claimed responsibility either.
Any guesses?
Well, the source speculates. When you see disruption that makes services unusable, it often points towards ransomware.
Encrypting data, demanding payment.
Right. Data gets encrypted, maybe exfiltrated too for extra leverage. And companies often shut systems down themselves to stop the bleeding. Now, WestJet did state their flight operations remain safe and stable, not impacted.
That's good, at least.
But still, any disruption to an airline's app or internal systems, travelers definitely feel that. This incident, compared to Zoomcar, it kind of highlights the difference, doesn't it? Data theft versus operational disruption, both bad for consumers, but in different ways, shows the diverse motives attackers have.
Yeah, true. Okay, and then there's this third one. This report about virtual Mac OS X sounds, well, pretty worrying. Thousands of user records leaked, including sensitive financial data. That sounds like the worst case.
It's definitely deeply concerning on the surface. Security researchers found someone offering a database, supposedly from virtualmacosx.com customers, for free on a hacking forum.
For free?
Yeah, which is one flag. The database reportedly has 176,000 lines of data, and the list of what's allegedly in there is scary. User IDs, full names, company names, emails, addresses, phone numbers, passwords, password reset keys.
Okay, bad enough.
But also bank names, bank types, bank codes, even bank account numbers.
Whoa! Okay, that is worst case. Is it confirmed?
Well, here's the crucial caveat. The researchers couldn't definitively confirm it's real. Mostly because, ethically, they can't just go testing leaked passwords and bank details.
Right, of course.
And the source points out it is unusual for data that sensitive bank accounts, passwords, to just be given away free. It raises suspicion. Could it be fake? Could it be old data recycled from some other breach? They couldn't find any previously reported breaches for virtualmacosx.com either.
So, could be real, could be fake. What should people do?
The advice has to be, assume the worst, just in case. If you've ever used Virtual Mac OS, you need to reset your password immediately. And critically, change it on any other site where you might have reused that same password.
Password reuse, yeah. Classic problem.
Huge problem. Also, keep a very close eye on your bank accounts for any weird transactions and be super vigilant about phishing emails pretending to be from Virtual Mac OS X. This incident, whether the data is 100% legit or not, is a really stark reminder about credential reuse and just needing unique, strong passwords everywhere.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've seen some progress, some major breaches. Now let's turn to, well, the really eye-opening stuff. how attackers are getting smarter, more
On
innovative.
the edge, yeah. And sometimes unsettling.
We're talking vulnerabilities that aren't just brute force. It's about clever exploitation, chaining simple flaws together. First up, a major content management system, Sitecore, apparently had a surprisingly simple flaw, but with devastating potential.
You're absolutely right. This Sitecore case is a textbook example of how one tiny crack can bring down the whole wall. Researchers found 3 vulnerabilities that, when chained, allowed a full server takeover.
3 chain vulns, okay.
And the starting point, it's almost unbelievable, a hard-coded password, just the single letter B.
Wait, seriously, the password was B?
The single letter B for an internal user account. Now, it wasn't an admin account, but it still gave authenticated access through an alternate login path.
Wow. Just wow. For enterprise software.
It really highlights just fundamental security errors sometimes. So that gets the attacker in the door, authenticated. Then comes flaw number 2, a zip slip vulnerability.
Zip slip. What's that?
It's a pretty common type of vulnerability, actually.
Yeah.
An attacker crafts a malicious archive file, like a zip file. When the system unpacks it, if it's not careful about checking file paths...
They can write files outside the intended folder.
Exactly. It tricks the system into writing files into arbitrary, potentially dangerous locations. In Sitecore's case, it let authenticated attackers write malicious files right into the web root because the upload wizard didn't sanitize paths properly.
Okay, so B gets you in, zip slip lets you plant code. Was a third step.
The third vulnerability kicks in if the Sitecore PowerShell Extensions module SPE is installed, which apparently is very common.
Right.
With SPE installed, attackers could use the file rewrite capability from the zip slip to upload files to specific paths that bypassed restrictions, and that allowed them to achieve reliable remote code execution, RCE, full server control.
So password B leads to zip slip, leads to RCE if SPE is there. That's quite a chain reaction from such a simple start.
Precisely. And the potential scale, huge. All Sitecore versions from 10.1 to 10.4 were vulnerable. That's roughly 22,000 publicly exposed instances. We're talking major organizations, banks, airlines, global companies.
A massive blast radius, as the researchers call them.
Yeah, exactly. They proved the whole chain works, urged immediate patching and rotating credentials. Sitecore did release patches and notified customers, thankfully. But the insight for you here is how critical it is to break these potential attack chains. It's not just about fixing one bug, it's about stopping the sequence. Even seemingly tiny misconfigurations can be the start.
That's a really important point. It's the whole chain.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, something maybe closer to home for developers listening. Vulnerabilities in GitHub Actions workflows. Not just stealing secrets, but potentially taking over whole projects.
Yeah, this hits right at the heart of modern software development and supply chain security. The core problem is vulnerabilities from misconfigurations in GitHub Actions workflows, specifically ones using the pull request target trigger.
Okay, pull request target. What's the issue with that?
Well, what's kind of insidious about this trigger is how it works. It runs workflows in the context of the main branch. That means it grants elevated privileges like access to the repository's GitHub token and secrets to code that's submitted from forks. Untrusted code, potentially.
It's meant for testing code before it merges, right?
Yeah.
But it runs with high privileges.
Exactly. It's intended for things like labeling pull requests or running checks before merge, but it creates this easily overlooked way for untrusted code to execute with high permissions.
That sounds risky. Has it been exploited?
Well, Sysdig's threat research team demonstrated how it could be. They compromised projects from some well-known orgs as proofs of concept.
Like who?
In Spotify, they showed a crafted setup.py file could execute code and steal secrets. In MIT's Cybersecurity Analytics Repository, CIR, they found attackers could run arbitrary code by tweaking dependencies, potentially even taking over the GitHub account.
Wow.
Even Splunk's security content repository exposed some secrets like API credentials through this kind of misconfiguration. It just shows how modern supply chain attacks often start by abusing these kinds of insecure automation workflows. A lot of developers might be using these high-risk setups without realizing it.
So what's the fix? Just don't use pull request target.
Developers really need to reassess if they need it. Consider safer alternatives, maybe separate workflows for untrusted code, run checks that don't need secrets first, only do sensitive stuff after validation. Also, limiting the permissions of the GitHub token itself is crucial. Use real-time monitoring tools. It's a reminder that even these super useful, widely adopted tools need careful setup and understanding their security implications.
Good advice. Automation is great, but gotta configure it right. Okay, and if that wasn't sneaky enough, malware using trusted Google URLs to bypass antivirus. And it only activates when you're checking out online. That sounds like sci-fi level stealth.
It absolutely does, and it's a really clever example of attackers weaponizing trust against us. This new browser-based malware campaign, yeah, it exploits legitimate domains like google.com to slip past defenses.
How does that even work?
Okay, so picture this.
Yeah.
You're on a compromised e-commerce site, maybe running Magento. A script on that site references a totally legitimate Google URL, specifically an OAuth logout URL, https://accounts.google.com, which is auth to revoke. It's harmless, right?
Yeah, looks like a standard Google link.
But here's the trick. There's a manipulated callback parameter hidden inside that legitimate URL. That parameter covertly tells the browser to decode and run an obfuscated JavaScript payload.
Whoa, so it's hiding malicious code inside a parameter of a real Google link.
Exactly. It's hiding in plain sight. Because the script appears to load from google.com, most content security policies, most DNS filters, they just let it through. No red flags.
Sneaky. And it only activates at checkout.
Yeah, it has this clever conditional trigger. The script basically lies dormant unless certain conditions are met, like if it thinks it's running in an automated browser, or critically, if the page URL contains the word checkout.
Okay, so it waits until you're about to pay. Then what?
When it activates, it silently opens a WebSocket connection back to a malicious server. A WebSocket is like a persistent, real-time chat line between the browser and the server.
Okay.
This lets the attackers remotely run code in real time right inside your browser session while you're checking out. Totally invisible to you. They don't need to reload the page or anything obvious.
That's terrifying. Can antivirus even catch this?
That's the problem. The logic is heavily obfuscated, hidden, and it only activates under specific conditions. Static malware scanners have a really hard time. Even many advanced antivirus and endpoint protection tools might miss it because it looks legitimate initially.
So what can people do? This seems really hard to defend against.
It highlights just how sophisticated online threats are now, especially around shopping. It's not just don't click weird links anymore. You almost have to be suspicious of every script, even from trusted domains. Maybe limit third-party scripts using browser extensions. Some people even recommend using separate browser sessions or profiles just for financial stuff. Vigilance is key.
Yeah, definitely food for thought there. Okay, finally, let's talk about something really cutting edge. Almost theoretical, but fascinating. Smartwatches stealing secrets from air-gapped computers. What's this smart attack idea?
Yeah, this one comes from researchers at Ben-Gurion University. It's a theoretical concept they call smart attack. It describes a hypothetical way data could be stolen from ultra-secure air-gapped systems using a smartwatch.
Okay, first, remind us what air-gapped means again.
Right. Air-gapped systems are computers or networks that are physically isolated. No connection to the internet, no connection to unsecured networks. Maximum security, basically. Think classified government systems, critical infrastructure control systems.
Totally isolated. So how could a smartwatch possibly get data out?
Well, the theory goes like this. First, somehow malware has to get onto the air-gapped system itself. That's the first big hurdle, maybe a supply chain attack, an insider threat, an infected USB drive, something like that.
Okay, assuming the malware is on the isolated machine.
That malware then harvests the sensitive data. And here's the clever part. It encodes that data into ultrasonic audio signals, sounds pitched between 18 and 22 kilohertz, way above what humans can hear.
Ultrasonic sound. Okay.
These signals, theoretically, could transmit data at maybe 50 bits per second over a distance of up to 6 meters or so.
Not fast, but it's data leaking out through sound.
Exactly. Then the second piece is a compromised smartwatch, also infected with malware, worn by someone near the air-gapped computer. The smartwatch's microphone passively listens for these ultrasonic signals.
Ah, it picks up the secret sounds.
Right. It receives the data encoded in the ultrasound and then uses its own connectivity, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, maybe relaying through a paired phone, to send that stolen data back to the attacker.
So the smartwatch acts like a bridge across the air gap, using inaudible sound. That sounds incredibly complex. Is it actually feasible?
It is very complex, yeah. The researchers acknowledge it's technically challenging and probably only narrowly feasible in a real-world scenario. There are so many hurdles. Getting the initial malware on the air-gapped system is hard. The smartwatch needs to be in range, maybe even oriented correctly. People move around. It's not easy.
So it's more of a thought experiment, maybe?
Largely, yes. But the so what here, the real takeaway, isn't necessarily watch out for ultrasonic smartwatch attacks tomorrow. It's the deeper question it raises.
Which is
Our current cybersecurity tools, our antivirus, our endpoint protection, even designed to detect or defend against these kinds of indirect, unconventional side channel attacks. It pushes us to accept that maybe no system is ever completely safe, not even air-gapped ones.
right.
It highlights this constant need for thinking about advanced defenses, maybe even things like ultrasonic jamming or special firewalls, even if they seem far-fetched now. For you, the listener, it makes you think, doesn't it? How every piece of tech, even your watch, could potentially be an attack vector. It really challenges our basic assumptions about what secure means.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive. We've covered a lot. From AWS hitting that big MFA milestone
Real win, yeah.
to the stark realities of breaches like Zoomcar and WestJet, the constant
With
threats,
persistent risks,
and
aren't
then
we?
tearing into this, well, ingenious and sometimes unsettling future, the Sitecore chain reaction, the GitHub Actions risks, the invisible Google malware, and now even theoretical smartwatch attacks.
Exactly. What really stands out to me through all this is just the nonstop innovation on both sides, right? The defenders are innovating, but the attackers are too, constantly.
It's a constant arms race.
It really is. And it underscores that staying informed isn't just about, reacting to the latest headline. It's about understanding the mechanisms behind these things, the potential implications. Our digital lives are just so interconnected now. Vigilance plus smart protections, they're more critical than ever.
So, thinking about all this,
Mm-hmm.
what does it really mean for you listening right now? I guess the most provocative thought to leave you with is maybe this. If we live in a world where even your watch could theoretically be used to steal secrets, how do you redefine secure in your own digital life?
Yeah.
And maybe, what other vulnerabilities might be hiding in plain sight in the everyday tech we just take for granted?
Something to think about, definitely. Let that curiosity guide how you protect yourself online. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today. Stay safe out there.
We'll be back next week with more deep dives into the latest cybersecurity news and stories. Until then, keep calm and keep coding securely.